a man of God, a great American, a martyr to the cause of justice, equality, and freedom. These are the words that describe Dr. Martin Luther King.
He spoke of a dream in which all people, regardless of the color of their skin or religious beliefs or their ethnic heritage, would be treated with fairness and dignity.
Sadly, during Dr. King's lifetime, justice, equality, and freedom were nothing more than dreams for many Americans.
You see, during Dr. King's lifetime, black people in the United States were treated differently than white people.
Black people could not eat in the same restaurants as whites in some states.
Black children cannot attend the same schools as white children.
Black people could not even use the same restrooms or water fountains as white people.
This was not fair, and around the country, black and white people began to speak out against this unfairness.
Dr. Martin Luther King was one of the leaders of those who, through their actions and their words, demanded the American West live up to its promise of land of opportunity for all people, blacks, whites, Asians, Hispanics, Native Americans, and all others.
I have a dream that this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed, that all men are created equal.
In the summer of 1963, Dr. King spoke at a special gathering of people dedicated to civil rights, equal rights for all people. The meeting was held in Washington, D.C. in front of the Lincoln Memorial and the statue of Abraham Lincoln, the president who ended slavery during the Civil War 100 years earlier.
And still, even 100 years after the end of slavery, black people were still treated as second-class citizens in most parts of the United States.
But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land.
Dr. King helped all Americans see that this was not right, that no American should be satisfied with a country that treats people differently just because some have black skin and others have white.
I can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs stating for whites only. We cannot be satisfied as long as a Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and a Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. We can never be satisfied as long as our believes he has nothing for which to vote. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies heavy with fatigue of travel cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the city. No, we are not satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.
But the road to justice is a long and hard road. Many people attending this assembly had already been hard at work trying to make things better for all people in America. Dr. King urged them to keep the faith and continue their work.
I know that many of you have come here out of great trails and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution. And and staggered by the winds of police.
Continue to work, go back to the Mississippi, go back to Alabama, go back to South Carolina, go back to Georgia, go back to Louisiana, go back to the slums and the ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed.
Dr. King knew that the work of people of goodwill dedicated to liberty and justice for all would eventually lead to a new America, an America he saw in his dreams.
I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by their color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and little black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
This will be the day when all God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee I sing, land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside let freedom ring, and if America is to become a great nation, this must become true.
So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the herbaceous slopes of California.
But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from the Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring.
And when this happens, and when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speak of that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and to sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Dr. King was one of the greatest leaders of civil rights movement in the United States in the 1950s and 60s.
Unfortunately, he never lived to see the day when his dream of an America for all people became a reality.
In 1968, 5 years after giving his I Have a Dream speech, Dr. King traveled to Memphis, Tennessee to support a strike by the city's sanitation workers. While standing on a balcony of a motel, Dr. Martin Luther King was shot and killed by an assassin.
Still, the legacy of Dr. King lives on. These words of Dr. King that you have just heard continue to inspire people of goodwill today, just as they did on that special day in 1963.
Dr. Martin Luther King taught us that people who want is right and who deserve equality, justice, and freedom for all can make it happen by working for it. We continue to work for it today so that all of us matter, no matter who we are or what we may look like. We will be able to say, free at last, free at
last. Thank God Almighty